the Astros use their newfound blend of speed and power to maximum effect. Jordan Lyles did his best Bud Norris impersonation against a powerful Angels lineup. Tonight, Bud gets a chance to outduel the Angels for a second time this season. Don't blink. You might miss something good. Astros baseball starts now. Live from Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas, Comcast Sportsnet brings you Houston Astros baseball. Tonight it's Game 2 of this three-game series between the Astros and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Good evening, everybody. Bill Brown and Alan Ashby. We saw a tight one last night. The Astros, with their first come-from-behind win of the year, they claimed it 7-6. They did some running along the way, Ash.
They did do some running along the way. Jordan Lyles pitched well. A nicely paced game against the Angels, a team that's also struggling. But the Astros turned things around, and it was nice to see the young guys get together offensively. And it came together in the third inning after a base hit by Brandon Barnes. The bunt by Robbie Grossman created problems with the speed. Jimmy Paredes, new at the ball club, gets his first hit, a double as he drives it. Jose Altuve just shows speed as he blazes down the line to beat it out. And that put Paredes in motion again as he took third base. Run scored on that, and then they went to the power game as Chris Carter slammed his 8th on the season. So very nice to see the guys make that 7th on the year for Chris Carter. But it was a nice combination of offensive tactics.
Now Bud Norris takes the ball tonight, and his best game of the year happened to come against the Angels on the road.
Back in the early part of April, he was outstanding. A 7-inning outing for Bud Norris, allowed just 3 hits in this one. And we talked at the time about that angle down toward the knees all night long. Got that slider started down around the knees and broke it below. He had the Angels fishing for his stuff all night long. Bud Norris would love to replicate that outing as he faces the Angels once again. An Angels club that is really struggling. Not only are they losing games, but they're losing because some of their big players, Pujols and Josh Hamilton in particular, not doing a whole lot with the bats. Mike Trout even struggling.
Coming up next from Minute Maid Park in Houston, Robbie Grossman and the new Astros are going to be the subject of Julia Morales' next segment right after this.
the Angels in the second of a 3-game series. Top of the lineup for the Astros looks a lot like it did in yesterday's win. Robbie Grossman leading off in front of Jimmy Paredes in the number 2 spot, ahead of Jose Altuve. Ideal for this organization. Robbie Grossman was called up from AAA due to his high on-base percentage that he held. Right now he's riding an 8-game hitting streak. The batting average, .216, but Bo Porter said he's had great at-bats. He's making pitchers work. And when he makes contact, you see it in this video, he's using the whole field. He can really turn the ball the other way. The Astros are hoping to see big things come from him, and they saw the potential when they got him in the Wandy Rodriguez trade. They're starting to see the results. Also, Jimmy Paredes coming to Houston in the Lance Berkman trade. He went 1 for 4 last night, but made some big things happen in his first game of the season here. Also, Matt Dominguez, another guy who they took a chance on. Is it paying off? Well, it's hard to name a better third baseman in the league right now, leading the league in infield percentage in the hot corner. He came over from the Marlins in the trade for Carlos Lee. So things starting to come together. Bo Porter likes what he sees, and he was really excited about the opportunity to put Grossman in front of Altuve, having someone that Altuve, the team's hottest hitter, could drive in. Now, with 2 guys who can really wreak havoc on the base pass, it might be what the Astros need to turn things around here. All right, coming up, it's all about Bud Norris, who got after the Angels the first time around. He looks to do the same tonight in the second game of this series. Stick around for lineups and first pitch here on Comcast Sportsnet.
Is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. Are we lucky to have another gorgeous night? This weather is close to perfect, if not perfect, in downtown Houston at Minute Maid Park. The Astros finally won on this homestand last night after losing 4 in a row to Detroit. Now they go after a second straight, and their numbers are similar to the Angels in the last 2 weeks. The starting lineup for Mike Scioscia begins with shortstop Eric Ivar. He's on a 10-game hitting streak. He's followed by center fielder Mike Trout, the designated hitter Albert Pujols, Mark Trumbo at first base, the cleanup man. It's right fielder Josh Hamilton, Howie Kendrick batting 6th at second base, Alberto Callaspo at third base, Chris Iannetta the catcher tonight, and J.B. Shuck in left field.
Bud Norris goes to the mound, 28-year-old right-hander, 3-3 on the year. 389 gives you a better picture. He has pitched well over the course of the season, and one of the games maybe his best, and I think definitely his best on the year against the Angels back on the 12th of April. A win that he picked up 7 innings, allowing just 3 hits in that one, and a couple of walks to go with 5 strikeouts. He was on the money all night long.
Last time out, a no decision against Detroit. He left with a 3-2 lead after 7 good innings, giving up 5 hits and 2 runs. Detroit won it late 4-3. Eric Ibar, a .288 hitter, has no homers. He's driven in a couple, and he's on that 10-game hitting streak we talked about. He led off the game with a double last night, going 1 for 5. Smashes this one by a diving Carlos Pena into right field on the first pitch by Norris. And Ibar now is in with an 11-game hitting streak.
Just jumping on the first pitch he sees in the strike zone, and Bud came with that fastball, left it out over the plate. Ball hit sharply enough to shoot on by Pena. Ibar was not fooled at all on that pitch.
Now he's aboard for Mike Trout, who doubled last night, going 1 for 4, and he was hit by a pitch. .274 for Trout, 5 homers. He's driven in 22. And the throw goes over. Ibar has 1 stolen base in 2 attempts. The Angels have not done a whole lot of running. They have 12 steals in 20 tries this year. Trout is 5 for 16 with a homer against Houston pitching this year. And that's in tight. Ball 1 for Bud Norris. That shutout win for Bud at Anaheim that Alan mentioned back on the 12th of April is his only career appearance against the Angels. Right-handed batters have really struggled against Bud much more than left-handed hitters. Check swing foul makes it a 1-ball 1-strike count for Trout. Trout's hit 3 homers in 6 games this month. He hit 1 home run in the month of April in 26 games. And unlike many of his teammates, he's been on more of a surge lately. 10 for his last 28 at .357. Bring his average up from .252 to the current .274.
When you have a year like Trout put up last year, his rookie season in the big leagues, it leaves it awfully difficult to try to match what he did. Now anything is going to look short, but it's not like he's playing poorly. But there are a couple of teammates for Mike Trout that have not played well at all.
Marwin Gonzalez and Jose Altuve at double play depth. There's a double play ball. There's one. Altuve turns it 6-4-3, and Norris erases Ibar.
Yeah, that defense is working, and we'll run through and see who's playing it with the leather tonight. Jason Castro behind the dish around the infield. Carlos Pena, Jose Altuve, Marwin Gonzalez. He got the double play started, and Matt Dominguez at third base in the outfield. Robbie Grossman moves to center. Jimmy Paredes in right, and Chris Carter in left. This is what that double play looked like. It has to be done perfectly to get the speed of Mike Trout, and just can't do it better.
Albert Pujols comes up. Pujols takes, and there's ball 1. At .231, Albert has 5 homers. He's driven in 19. 1 for his last 11 against Norris. And overall, in 27 career at-bats against Bud, he's a .185 hitter. That bounces, and it's ball 2. Albert last night walked and scored in the 3-run first on a homer by Mark Trumbo. He was 0 for 3 in the game with 2 punch-outs. And he has not looked like the Albert Pujols of old so far this year. Had right knee surgery after last year, and then he's been playing with plantar fasciitis in his left foot all year this year. So really hobbled, and DHing tonight, although he has played more first base than DHing this year. Sometimes when a player DHs with that type of injury, it can stiffen up on him in between since he's not playing in the field. Line drive off the left field wall on 1 hop. That's picked up by Carter. Pujols heads into second base, and he has a 2-out double. That double play looking awfully big right now after double number 6 for Pujols.
Yeah, that's hanging it out right now. Pujols got a fastball up and in a bit, and that's a nice quick bat, something he hasn't displayed all the time. But the difficulty is the running now as he gingerly heads into second base on a routine double. But anybody who's had that plantar fasciitis knows it is a dreadful problem, and I would say in watching Pujols run right there, it is not the worst version that he's dealing with.
Right, yeah, it's very painful. There's what Norris and Pujols have done when they have faced each other. Now it's Mark Trumbo.
Yeah, that fastball has been hit from Bud.
Strike to Trumbo, who unloaded that 3-run first inning homer last night. 292, 9 homers, 23 runs batted in for Mark. He took a first pitch fastball out from Jordan Lyles last night, but then Jordan slammed the door on the Angels after that, and he went 5 innings to get the win. Trumbo looks at the heater off the plate, and it's a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Bud Norris falling into that usual pattern of excellent work here at Minute Maid Park, where he's 2-1 with a 2.70 ERA. In his career, he's 19-15 in this ballpark. His ERA here is 3.45. On the road, it's 5.41. All back. It's 1-2. Since 2012, we take a look. And the best home ERA in the National League last year, so including this year at home, since the beginning of last year, 6-2 with a 1.95.
Numbers like that can be, they're hard to figure out, I guess, is the bottom line. And sometimes it just simply comes down to a pitcher will tell you, I love the mound in this ballpark, and that could well be the case for Bud. Maybe he has a knack of having hitters work from gap to gap.
That's line. And whoa, Marwin Gonzalez. If he had not caught that, that's extra bases into the left center field gap. Instead, it's out number 3. It's no runs, 2 hits, a runner stranded at second. And the Angels hit some balls hard, but they have a 0 in the first. Astros lineup card made up of Bo Porter. It's Robbie Grossman on that 8-game hitting streak. Leading off in center field, Jimmy Paredes in right field, Jose Altuve second base. Jason Castro back in the lineup. He's the catcher and the cleanup man. With J.D. Martinez the DH, Carlos Pena at first base, Chris Carter in left field, Matt Dominguez at third base, Marwin Gonzalez the shortstop.
Joe Blanton, a right-handed veteran, 32 years of age, 0-5 on the year in 7 starts. Club won his first start of the year, that against Colorado, but since then nothing but losses, 1 no decision mixed in. Joe Blanton has had a bit of a rough go, ERA right under that 6 mark.
He's 32 years old. He delivers a strike there to even the count at 1-1 on Grossman. Grossman at 216 has no homers, 2 runs batted in. Robbie had a hit last night and a sac bunt. Bounces this one to second where Howie Kendrick is there. On over to first where Trumbo receives it, 1 out.
Defense for the Angels behind Joe Blanton. Doing the catching tonight, it is Chris Iannetta. Around the infield, Mark Trumbo, Howie Kendrick, Eric Ibar, and Alberto Callaspo. And in the outfield, Mike Trout is in center. He's flanked by Josh Hamilton. He's in right, and J.B. Shuck in left.
Jimmy Paredes made a triumphant return to the Astros last night. He'd been playing mostly infield at Oklahoma City, but moving to right field last night, he had an RBI double in 4 trips. Strike one to Jimmy. Always nice to get in the action right away after being called up and have some success. He fouls it back 0-2.
Good swing. Sometimes when you foul it right back to the screen, you've centered it up just beautifully, and that was a good looking swing.
It was. He was ripping out line drives in batting practice. He has a beautiful left-handed swing, switch hitter. Very picturesque. Blanton bounces that one. It's a 1-2 count.
I asked Jose Altuve which side is Paredes better from, and Paredes was swinging left-handed at the time, and he just said right here, meaning from the left side.
Oh, he is. Gorgeous left-handed swing. Blanton very much a stand-up pitcher. Bounces that one. It's a 2-ball 2-strike count.
Also asked Altuve about that home run last night. Was that the longest one he's hit? And he initially said yes, and then he said, well, also there was one in Seattle, and earlier in the season, one of the big blowouts by the Astros, Altuve just crushed one there as well.
Yeah. Well, the way Paredes was hitting .366 at Oklahoma City with an OPS of 1,013. Very hot player when he was called up, and that's why Jeff Luhnow wanted to give him this opportunity. Boy, a GM always likes to select a player who's hot at the time for that promotion. Blanton changes speeds and gets him on strikes. 2 outs. Blanton has been solid against the Astros in his career.
Just a change up. Great location down and away. You start that swing feeling like it's a fastball, and perfectly done by the veteran.
So that's out number 2, and it's Jose Altuve now. 3-game hitting streak for Jose. A .338 batting average. That's 4th in the American League. That includes 2 homers, 17 runs batted in. He has 45 hits. Fouls that one away, strike one. And last night he batted 3rd for the first time this year and responded with a first-inning homer off C.J. Wilson. He also had an RBI infield hit in the 3rd, going 2 for 3. And he was walked intentionally and stole a base in the 7th inning. All the way for an 0-2 count on Jose Altuve, who just seems to hit whether he's hitting 1st, 2nd, or 3rd in the lineup. He's tied for the club lead in runs batted in and stolen bases. Hitting .303 with men in scoring position now. He chased that one, and Blanton got him on high heat for a 1-2-3 first. After 1, no score.
In the park at Minute Maid Park this weekend as the Astros face off against the Texas Rangers. 10,000 fans will receive a pink giveaway each night, courtesy of the Methodist Cancer Center. Call 1-877-9-ASTROS or visit Astros.com to get your tickets now.
Well, Porter has announced his starting pitchers for that Texas Rangers series, and it'll be Dallas Keuchel Friday night and Eric Bedard Saturday night. The media is somewhat surprised by that announcement that Bedard, who had just been sent to the bullpen a few days ago, is coming out of that pen to make a start. So there's Keuchel, who will get the call Friday, and Bedard Saturday. Back-to-back left-handers, and Bo said as one of his reasons the Rangers feature some powerful left-handed hitters, so he thinks that lefties can fare pretty well against them. Now Josh Hamilton leads it off in the second inning. And there's ball one, and as a part of that decision, Philip Humber is in the bullpen now for the Astros. Hamilton with a .202 average has 2 homers. He's driven in 9. 376 a year ago. .202 right now. Swinging at a lot of pitches out of the strike zone this year.
From last night, and we feature the pitch-by-pitch presented by Steel Dealers. Hector Ambrose had this at bat where he missed on a couple early and then leaves a pitch up through the strike zone. And that's the big mistake when you're really struggling. You foul off that good pitch to hit, and he eventually gets caught looking.
Grounds to Altuve here for out number 1.
You foul off pitches that are right there to hit. You hit little ground balls. You come back to the bench thinking, well, I just don't know. I feel pretty decent standing there, and then I take my swing, and I'm not on it the way I need to be.
Fans enjoying the night out there near the home run pump. Beautiful night it is. Howie Kendrick's the batter. He had 2 hits, including his 5th homer of the season last night. He's driven in 17 with a .299 average for Kendrick. He fights off the fastball, and there's strike 1. Howie, 28 years old. He hit 8 home runs all of last year. He has 5 already this season. Good solid hitter. He doesn't get a lot of attention.
Talk second baseman around Major League Baseball, and Howie Kendrick's name often doesn't even come up in the conversation, and yet it should.
Well, he has a .292 Major League average for his career. And he's driven in as many as 75 runs in a season. That was in 2010. And Eric Ibar, both very good up the middle offensive players. Grounded to third, and Dominguez takes care of that out. Number 2 for Bud Norris. Left-handed hitters have done much more damage against Bud this season.
By a wide margin. You're talking almost right on the money. 100-point slugging percentage, much favoring the left-hand hitters. No surprises there. Bud obviously needs another pitch or another tactic against the left-hand hitters.
His strikeout rate against left-handed hitters is 12%. It's 25% against right-handed hitters. Callaspo, a switch hitter, .277, has 2 homers. Alberto takes ball 1. He hit a 2-run homer last night, or make it strike 1, right? He hit a 2-run homer last night, and he's hit .277. He's come back from an injury to get back in this starting lineup. Punches that one in the air to left field. Chris Carter's underneath it. Well, there were some hard hit balls in the first inning. None here in the second for Bud Norris. No score.
Astros and the Angels. It's time for our Geico quote of the day, and it's from Bo Porter. He says, "You look at moves we made and putting speed at the top of the lineup. It was evident last night how it changed a ball game." Something else different about last night's ball game was the energy. The players admitted to that after the game, saying they played at a completely different level. Jason Castro said it felt a lot more like spring training. It was the way they were training to play the game. And he said, hopefully we can carry that on as the season goes forward, guys.
Thanks, Julia. Castro just took ball one after getting that rest last night and watching the energy of his teammates. He was impressed with it. 2 balls, no strikes. So was Bo Porter. Castro, a .255 hitter, has 2 homers, 7 runs batted in. Carlos Corporan did the catching last night. Castro bangs that one off his leg, and it's a 2-ball, 1-strike count for Jason. He's been batting third a fair amount of the time here the last few weeks, but in the number 4 spot tonight with Altuve occupying that number 3 position.
It was nice to see the speed pay off at the top last night, but I would caution that this isn't breakout, run all the time type speed. It worked in one ball game. Conger did not have a good game behind the plate.
Line drive to left. Shot goes up. Snares it for out number 1. Pretty well hit ball by Castro. Castro has 10 doubles this year, and many have been hit to that area of the field, a little bit further to the right of that. That left center field stroke. Now J.D. Martinez, he also returned to the lineup last night after being out with an injury and having a minor league rehab assignment. He was 1 for 4. He doubled the first time up last night. Blanton delivers, and there's strike 1. Joe is 0-3 on the road this season. His ERA is 6.32. He's never had a bad start against the Astros. No balls, 2 strikes. This is his 6th career outing against Houston.
If everybody takes that last pitch that Martinez took, he won't have a bad one tonight.
Yeah, and then goes for that one. And it's strikeout number 3.
To a fastball that got a lot of plate left up around the waist and taken for a strike. An off-speed pitch. Looked like possibly the change again, picking up the strikeout.
Throws his changeup 27% of the time this year. Carlos Pena, with a .239 average, 3 homers, has 9 runs batted in. Carlos got a rest in last night's game. Chris Carter was the first baseman. Carlos is a .278 lifetime hitter against Angel pitching. He had some good pitching during his career. There's strike 1. He has 17 career bombs against the Angels and 55 runs batted in for Mr. Pena. Carlos had a home run in the Detroit series, going 4 for 15, and he's 5 for 10 against Blanton. Smashes that one. The shift is on, though, and there's Howie Kendrick with a backhand play. And that's 6 in a row retired by Blanton in a scoreless game through 2. forward to Miller time later in tonight's game. Brought to you by Miller Lite. Bud Norris is pitching for a special group tonight, the Candlelighters group, and he's left tickets for several of them in section 128 there. He's bought tickets for 6 different games this season, so families of kids who have been affected by cancer can come out and enjoy a baseball game. He's also bought them some refreshments while they're here so they can have a wonderful evening. They'll be having a charity golf tournament on May 20th out at Sugar Creek in the southwest part of Houston, and Bud is planning to be a big part of that as well. So Bud Norris has some fans right there. Kim Lamb is with them tonight.
Nice going, Bud, and that's the way to handle yourself as a professional athlete.
Very nice. Right now he's in a trance, getting ready for inning number 3. He had an easy second inning. It'll be Ionetta, Shuck, and Ivar due up in the Angel third. Bud got 2 ground balls and a fly ball out last time. 203 for Ionetta with 3 bombs. He's driven in 9. Hank Conger did the catching last night. There's ball 1 to Ionetta, former Colorado Rocky. Ionetta 2 for 3 against Houston pitching this season with 1 RBI. Fly ball goes out to right field. Jimmy Paredes backs up a few steps to the warning track. 1 down. Paredes says he's fine with the outfield or second or third base. Big thing is seeing his name in that lineup card and getting an opportunity to play.
Yeah, he played quite a bit at third base at Oak City this year.
Well, it gives the Astros an excellent athlete who can fill in at those other spots. Right now they're pretty well manned at third and second. Shuck at 324 is driven in 3. He was 1 for 4 last night. Beats that one into the ground. There's Pena tossing, and Norris is there just a step ahead of the arrival of Shuck. 2 outs.
Back to Paredes, my question is where does he fit in offensively? Is he a corner outfielder with the bat? Is he a second baseman? Is he a third baseman? Third base would equate very much like the corner outfielder in terms of that desire, that need for the pop in the bat.
Yeah, if you can get the premium offense at second base, of course, that is terrific for a major league team. It's being provided right now by Jose Altuve, and there are no plans to move him off second.
Provided very well.
Yeah. Eric Ibar led off this game with a single to right field. Yeah, Altuve's the long range plan and the short range plan as well. Ball 1 to Ibar.
For me, and I hate to talk untouchable kind of players and stuff. I'm certainly not a general manager and don't even try to play one, but he's very close to it. He's such a good player.
Fly ball left field. Carter now moves in. He waited a beat. Now he gets there. And in the 3rd inning it goes in 1-2-3 fashion. Norris has retired 7 straight in a scoreless game in Houston.
Chris Carter steps to the plate. He was one of the guys with a big swing last night, able to slam one out. Might have gotten tied up just a bit on a pitch in on that inside edge, still with plenty of strength to slam it to the first or second row in left field. But compare it to one he hit in the gray uniform in Seattle earlier in the year, where he centers it up right on that sweet spot of the bat. He crushed that ball. So there's a lot more than the home run last night hit by Chris Carter. He can drive it much, much harder.
Strike one to him. Blanton misses off the plate. It's a 1-1 strike count to the 209 hitter with 7 home runs.
I think also what we saw there, the comparisons, he likes to extend those arms a bit.
Ground ball to Ibar. Blanton is sailing along. He's retired the first 7. Blanton has a winning record for his major league career. Just trying to settle in with this Angel club with that 0-5 mark this season. That's highly unusual for him. In his career, he's won 83 and he's lost 80. The University of Kentucky. He grew up in that state in Bowling Green. Matt Dominguez, 243, no homers, has driven in 9. He looks at ball 1 from Blanton. Blanton in his last 2 starts has a 3.21 ERA, but no victories. Pitched well and against Baltimore last year. Last time failed to get a win. Deep drive toward the right field corner. This one sails out. Or is it? No, it's off the fence, and Dominguez heads into second base. Hamilton picks the ball up and gets it back in. Dominguez gets his 8th double. And now here comes Bo Porter to say, wait a minute, didn't that get out?
I think this needs to be looked at, Brownie. I think this ball hit up in the steps beyond the wall, if my eyes serve correctly.
It looked like it at first. Adrian Johnson is the umpire at first.
I didn't see this ball as hitting a padded wall and coming back.
Let's see.
Nice job one way or the other, driving a pitch up and away. Oh, I don't know. My eyes may not have served correctly. I think they may have gotten that right on the field. Certainly did. Unless there's something directly behind that yellow line, the wall there, not sure that's going to serve as anything other than hitting the top of the wall. What do you see? You've seen the ballpark a lot more.
I haven't seen that particular play much at all. It looked like it hit, as you can see.
That's part of the wall, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's just the pad not coming all the way to the top, likely.
Yeah, it would appear that that's going to be ruled a double. Umpires are in looking at it now.
If you need another angle to look at it from, you get one. And yeah, I think the cameras have picked up the fact that the call is a good one.
Is that padding flush with the top of the wall? It's hard to tell. Looks like it is.
Duct tape generally takes care of everything.
Yeah.
But in this case, it may have left just a little bit of a gap. But I think nonetheless still part of that wall. And
well, Bo Porter, of course, any manager would go out and say, take a look at that, will you? And there you see the top of that wall back there.
You think you've seen enough? You're getting more. A whole lot of great angles provided, and that ball hits the top of the wall in my book. I don't see any other way you can rule this one.
No, because there's nothing really behind that area that it could have hit. So it's all part of the wall structure.
Yeah, the problem is you say anything over the yellow line's a home run, but if that yellow line kind of slips a little bit off the top of the wall, then you create a bit of a problem.
So Dominguez for now is at second base. The umpiring crew is now coming back out onto the field to make its decision known after reviewing the replays from New York. And yeah, they're going to keep him at second base. It's a double for Dominguez.
Proudly declare we got it right.
So a bid for home run number 1 of this season is denied, but it's his 8th double for Matt, and he's the first base runner for Houston. He's in scoring position with 1 out for Marwin Gonzalez. You don't get many like that, Ash.
No. But when you can create a problem with duct tape, you've really done something special anyway.
Marwin Gonzalez at 238 has 3 homers. He's driven in 8. Trying to come out of a slump here tonight. There's strike 1 to Marwin. His batting average was in great shape until just the last couple of weeks. He's 0 for 19. So that's why he's at 238 right now. Ronnie Cedeno played shortstop last night. This is Marwin's 22nd game at shortstop, the 34th game for the Astros. This one bounces, and here goes the runner, Dominguez, for third. Wow. He took a chance.
Nice reaction.
It worked out.
You have to be able to read the ball in the dirt well, and he does all of that right here as the ball rolls up that third baseline. Sometimes as a base runner, you see the ball blocked, and your initial reaction is, oh, it's not going to get far enough away, but that's a good read. So we talked about the speed at the top of the order, but reactions oftentimes equate to that very good base running speed.
And that brings the infield in. 1-1 to Marwin. Line shot, and that breaks the 0 for 19 and gives the Astros a 1-0 lead. Gonzalez is going to try to stretch it. Here's a throw from Schuck. It's offline. He's safe. RBI double, Marwin Gonzalez.
Sometimes great effort and a perfect read will equate to everything you're looking for on the bases, and Marwin Gonzalez comes up with it.
It's his 6th double of the year, RBI number 9 on a well-hit ball.
This read comes from step 1 right there. He knows he's going to try to go for 2. Nice way to break up that lengthy streak that had gone the wrong way. And you know, and right there you're going to have to dive. It's all out.
Now he's in scoring position for Grossman. Robbie grounded out in the dirt, ball 1.
You're digging hard, and you just lay out knowing you're going to have to dive in at that point. He's not gifted with the greatest speed, but again, a very nice read and effort to go with it.
That first slide into second. Got a big lead off second base. Here's Iannetta cocking the arm, and nobody went to cover, and it's ball 2. Astros frisky on the bases last night and again tonight. They're taking some risk. 22nd extra base hit allowed by Joe Blanton. That's the most in the American League. He's allowed a total of 57 hits in 36 innings. This fly ball heads for center field. Trout turning all the way around. Trout back. Trout with a tremendous catch on the warning track. Gonzalez will not be able to move to third as Trout turned his back to the infield, went back and made a spectacular play for out number 2.
Yeah, I don't know how Mike Scioscia feels when he gets Peter Borges back. Is Borges the center fielder? But for me, Mike Trout is my center fielder. This guy can go with anybody, and all the athleticism needed to make terrific plays, and this is one of those.
He is a game changer defensively. Robbing extra bases. Grossman absolutely denied at least a double, probably more than that. And Trout takes care of a big out number 2 for Joe Blanton. Jimmy Paredes coming up next. He struck out in the first inning. Well, that could have been 3 doubles in a row had Trout not held on to that one.
That kind of defense can be game changers. We typically think of a big hit here or there, but robbing a big hit that can create a big inning, and that was one of those situations. Just an enormous play for the Angels.
Line shot. That's up the right field line into the corner. Paredes is going to have extra bases himself. It's 2-0 Astros. Hamilton gets it back in. The 3rd double of the inning. Paredes gets his second in as many games, and his second run batted in as many games. Houston as the bats are striking some extra base hits.
Great stuff to see. You love to see the Astros get hot and start getting some hits, but when you can do it with extra bases, as we're seeing, and Jimmy Paredes looks like he can be one of those guys, and maybe that doubles type bat can be enough to play in right field. Doesn't have to always be the home runs to be a guy with pop.
Laid out some thunder into the right field corner. Mike Butcher out to the mound. Blanton, who brought an ERA of 5.97 into this game, was cruising along. He retired the first 7. Now 3 doubles in the inning, and he trails 2-0. This Angel pitching staff nowhere near the staffs that they have had in their fine years here in the last decade. Their staff ERA extremely high for an Angel club at 4.68.
There are rumors floating about that Mike Scioscia, the longtime and very successful manager for the Angels, could be in trouble, despite having a contract that runs through 2018, I believe. And he has been a terrific manager, but the manager is the guy where the buck seems to stop with, and the Angels are struggling to the extent that manager seems to be in trouble.
Altuve looks at it. It's ball 1 upstairs. He struck out in the first inning.
The only thing I'll say is if they go to that extent, the Angels management, whoever they bring in is going to face the same scenario, guys who are not swinging the bats. And a pitching staff not even close to getting it done.
2 balls, no strikes. Missing Jared Weaver, the opening day starter, out with a broken left elbow. Their starters have an ERA of 4.84 with 7 wins, 15 losses. It's a 2-ball, 1-strike count to Altuve. Scioscia has been a tremendous manager for this club. 2 World Series, 5 division championships, more than 1,100 games as a manager. Into right center field, Hamilton comes over. And in the 3rd inning, the Astros hang out 3 doubles. They score 2 runs and grab a 2-0 lead.
Astros lead as we go to the 4th inning. Some of you watching this game right now don't have CSN in your own home. If your TV provider doesn't carry CSN yet, call them and tell them you want CSN so you can have the very best coverage of your Astros. This is your network, Astros fans. You deserve it. To get the facts, go to iwantcsnhouston.com.
It's a gorgeous night, and the Astros fans are liking what they're seeing on the field in addition to out there in the distance. Very, very good temperature, low humidity for the game tonight. And it's 2-0 as Bud Norris goes to work after a 5-pitch 3rd inning for Bud. He's thrown 24 pitches in the first 3 innings. It's Mike Trout to lead it off. Trout bounced into a double play earlier. There's strike 1 to Trout. Norris shooting for win number 4 of the season. One opening day here against the Texas Rangers. They'll be here over the weekend. Bounce to shortstop again. Alvin Gonzalez fires to first. 1 out.
Bud Norris off to a good start here this evening against the Angels. He also pitched very well in that recent start against the Tigers. After being up a little bit early in the game, he got the breaking balls down. That slider extremely effective. 7 innings of 5 hit ball, allowing just a couple of runs, and gave the Astros a legitimate chance to win that one against the Tigers.
6 ground ball outs for Bud. That's a good sign. Albert Pujols doubled to left field in the first. Pujols looks at it. It's ball 1. Before the start in Anaheim, during Bud Norris's bullpen prior to that game, pitching coach Doug Brocail emphasized to him to stay back. And that gave him some tilt on his breaking ball. In the air, Carlos Pena near the right field line. Altuve makes the play. Over in foul ground. Apparently called him off late for out number 2.
Altuve may have wound up with a tougher play than Carlos was facing, but that angle usually says the second baseman has the better shot. Right here, that's a tough play going Willie Mays with the basket catch.
You know, Ash, he might have done that to avoid looking into the setting sun. Carlos was looking right back into that sun.
Very well may be the case, and you could see the angle that Jose Altuve was able to get.
Now Trumbo, he had a hot liner to shortstop. Gonzalez got up and speared it. This line drive won't be caught by the shortstop. That jumps out to Chris Carter. Wow. Trumbo is hanging out ropes here. Had 2 sharp line drive swings in this game. It's a 2-out single.
Yeah, sometimes you joke down on the field when you see a guy hanging out shots like this that you got him popping up. And of course, that's tongue in cheek when a guy is just centering the ball like Trumbo is.
He has been crushing it. Josh Hamilton rolled out to second in the second inning. Astros shift him around to pull. And that's been something we've been seeing throughout. The runner goes. Here's the throw from Castro. Gonzalez with a tag. Trumbo is out. And that ends the 4th inning for the Angels as Castro guns down his 4th of the year. It's no runs a hit, nobody left. And after 3.5, the Astros lead it 2-0.
On top 2-0, and the Astros treated a very special guest today. Malachi Morales is turning 100 years old in November, and he wanted to meet some of the players. Well, the Astros helped him out. They took him on a tour of Minute Maid Park, and they let him down for batting practice, so we got to meet a lot of the players. He is our progressive fan of the game, and I'm with him now in the stand. Malachi, did you enjoy your day? What was? Oh, let's send it up to Brownie real quick.
Line drive to right by Castro. He's lined out twice. Julia, he's not related to you in any way, right?
Well, I wanted to see what his favorite part of the day was. Malachi, what do you got? Your favorite part of today? I don't think you can really hear me. Your favorite part of the day earlier?
Oh, the favorite is see those Astros. This is my favorite team, you know. I like to see my family. When I see the Astros, I be happy. I be crazy like a little boy, you know, when he started running, fall down and get up. At the same time, the Astros fall down and get up again, you know. But they're going to keep on playing. They're going to keep on playing. They're going to win sometime, you know. Don't worry about it. They lose it. Everybody lose. Yeah, everybody lose. And I be happy when they lose because I like it to see it anyway, you know. Because I'm be happy to come to see the Astros today. Or be like to see my family when I see the Astros.
You got to meet a lot of them, too. Brownie, they make him so happy. It's fantastic.
Glad they worked that out, and his family had sent a letter in advance talking about the 100-year-old man that you just are sitting next to there. Wow. You don't get to meet too many centenarians. 2 balls, 2 strikes, and it's foul back.
I got to meet him before the ball game. I'd actually received a letter from this gentleman, and my wife Catherine jumped on the chance to see if they could get him out on the field today, and so I'm very proud of that effort done by my wife, and he was just delighted to be down there and meet everybody.
Shot foul, makes it 2 balls, 2 strikes.
And if everybody could just have a little bit of that attitude. He loves his Astros. He said he loves them regardless of if they win or they lose. He knows someday they're going to be a winning ball club.
Special night for him, and certainly for his family. 100 years old. J.D. Martinez strikes out. That's number 4 for Joe Blanton. And Pena will be next.
One thing I can assure you is his spirit is not 100.
No.
He is a young man.
Yes, he is. Blanton had that 1-2-3 first, another 1-2-3 second. He retired the first 7 before running into doubles problems in the third. Now he's getting back on track. Castro's hitting tough luck tonight with 2 lineouts. Now Pena with the infield shifting around on him. He grounded out to Howie Kendrick, who's in shallow right field. First time up. Chris Carter on deck. Strike 1 to Pena. Pena was very close with Rick Ankiel, and Rick was designated for assignment, so that was a difficult time for Carlos to lose a good teammate, good friend. And that's what baseball players have to go through during a 6-month season. They have to say goodbye to some guys they really would like to be around some more. He looks at it. It's a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Both those guys have done a lot in the clubhouse for the younger players in terms of developing a professional approach.
The competition through the years is great, and everybody that puts on a uniform loves it, but they also love those relationships.
1-2.
And they are hard to give up in the end.
The Astros have made a lot of moves, as you know, this season. And now Dallas Keuchel will be making his first start of the year Friday. Eric Bedard will follow him up on Saturday against the hard-hitting Rangers, who have pitched very well this year. Blanton missing inside takes the count to 2 balls, 2 strikes. Will Porter called his rotation a fluid situation. Said he talked to Phil Umber and informed him he was going to the bullpen. Said, hey, look at Bedard. And we said that he was going down there, and we're going to keep him stretched out, and you could be rejoining the rotation just as he is. Fly ball over third base, and that will be foul. Still 2-2. Fastball has a lot of ground to cover. He's the only guy over there.
Oh, we've seen a couple of changes here in the last couple of nights, seeing the change that you're talking about in the pitching rotation at least one time around. Chris Carter playing in left field today is kind of a turn back based on what we had heard a day ago.
Right. Fans were not to play him very much in the outfield, and now he's in the outfield. Pena strikes out, and that's number 5 for Blanton. It means a 1-2-3-4 for him, and it keeps the score 2-0 Astros through 4.
Talking Josh Hamilton right now. Josh Hamilton is a guy who hits a lot of balls on the right side, especially if you're talking about ground balls. You can see only 7% ground balls from shortstop toward that third base line. In the air now, he's inclined to hit it all over the field, and less so to hit it to right field. But on the right side on ground balls, and this is the sort of thing, and it's provided by Bloomberg Sports, as they just compile all the numbers. They find where the balls are hit. This is what the Astros look at to determine how they're going to play guys defensively. And now we'll take a look at that defense with Josh Hamilton at the plate. And you can see how it bears out. Third baseman well off that third base line. And they're trying to simply play to the percentages. You can even see in center field pushing toward left a bit, as we talked about a lot of the fly balls going that direction.
This fly ball goes to right field. Jimmy Paredes heads in. There's one pitch, one out for Bud Norris here in the 5th. Hamilton's 0 for 2. There's some charting. Eduardo Perez aligns the defense for the Astros. Works with Decision Sciences Department. They present information, and he takes a look at it, consults some other sources, draws up a plan for the Astros to align themselves defensively. Howie Kendrick takes strike 1. Kendrick grounded out to third in the second, and third baseman Matt Dominguez has been so terrific defensively for the Astros this year. He's leading all third basemen in fielding percentage. Right up there in total chances and assists as well. He's had 99 total chances coming into this one. He got another one in the second inning tonight to give him 100. And that's part of it too. You know, shifting is important for the Astros, but also players who can have range. And sometimes that pitcher doesn't hit the exact spot, so the ball doesn't go right to a fielder. It's just never going to work that easily. But somebody with range who can come out of whatever position he starts in and make a play to his right or left, like Dominguez has done, is very, very helpful. Marwin Gonzalez having a good year defensively, too.
I think when you talk second, third, and short for the Astros defensively, they have played very well. The double plays that have been turned behind the pitching staff, just extremely good in that regard. Matt Dominguez is a guy who could for a long time be among the leaders, not only in fielding percentage, but in getting 2 balls.
He's pretty far off the line on a right-handed batter, a normal right-handed batter.
Well off the line.
But he's there for a reason. And Grossman's way over in right center field for Kendrick. That's where he hits it, and that's where he hit that ball, right to Robbie Grossman, past the diving Jose Altuve. Kendrick is now 1 for 2 in this game.
Yeah, you always have to juggle, though, as you position, especially infielders. Are you willing to give up a double to take away a single? And that's the juggle that goes on.
Double play in order here for Callaspo. Callaspo hit a fly ball to left field in the second inning. It's really important, as many games as major league teams play, 162, to try to avoid those extra base hits defensively. Keep the double play in order. Line drive into right center field. Kendrick takes the turn at second. He chugs on into third. Jimmy Paredes' throw cut off, and it's a single by Callaspo. And it's first and third, 1 out.
Good chance to look at the throwing arm of Jimmy Paredes in right field. And he got it down nicely for his cutoff man, the shortstop Marwin Gonzalez, and plenty on it. Now, it's not a Rick Ankiel type velocity on the throw as you see this base hit. But you see a good throw, and this is what major league coaching staffs want to see, is that throw down so the trail runner can't move another 90 feet and leave it up to the infielders to make the remainder of the play.
That keeps the double play in order for Chris Iannetta now. Iannetta hit a fly ball to Paredes in right in the third inning. Does that again here for the proper depth. The Angels get a run on it. Callaspo has attempted one steal. Bouncer slowly hit. Marwin with the shovel. Altuve the middleman. 6-4-3 double play. And that's some good execution. It's no runs, 2 hits, and a runner stranded at third in the middle of the 5th inning as the Astros turn their second double play of the night, 44th of the year. They maintain a 2-0 lead.
On at Bat is the #1 source for live baseball everywhere you go. Available for iPhone, iPad, Android, and BlackBerry 10. At Bat delivers Astros baseball with live audio, pitch tracking, stats, news, highlights, and more. Text at Bat to 31826 or visit Astros.com for details, guys.
Thank you, Julia. Beautiful night out there atop Union Station, old train station, and looking down into Minute Maid Park, where the Astros lead at 2-0. Chris Carter leads off in the home 5th inning. He grounded to shortstop in the 3rd. Chris takes ball 1 in the dirt. They had a wild one today. Oklahoma City winning 7-6 in 10, trailing 6-0 until 2 outs in the 9th inning. Fly ball deep left field. Chris Carter goes off again above the archway. That's number 8 for Carter. 2-2 games for Carter. That's 18 runs batted in, and it's 3-0 Houston.
Awfully nice to see for the Astros when Chris Carter starts swinging that bat the way he's seemingly capable of doing. And that home run pace, somewhere between 35 and 40 on the year right now. If he gets there, I think a lot of people will be quite pleased. He obviously would like to make more contact, but this kind of contact will keep you wide open to having that bat in the lineup.
High up on that wall. Now Matt Dominguez with a rocket on the ground. There's a diving play. Ibar up, and ooh, that's a big time play by Ibar, robbing Dominguez, who doubled to right earlier. Some hard hit balls have been turned into outs by the Angels. Castro's lined out twice. Grossman hit a deep drive to center, caught by Trout.
You know, in our open today, I mistakenly said Carter with 8 home runs and had to shift back to 7. But I think I was just feeling it.
Yeah.
I think I could see this coming, and so Chris Carter with Bo Porter says, yeah, Ash was right.
Another guy's feeling it. He got all of that one. Marwin Gonzalez doubled in the first run, showing butt. He takes ball 1. Carter really slammed that one, showing off his power. That's his 3rd long ball against the Angels this season. 5th of his career. Aspo in on the grass at 3rd for Gonzalez. It's a 1-ball, 1-strike count.
This has been some really good baseball. Now, 2 clubs that are struggling, no question about it, but 2 pitchers that are throwing strikes, putting the ball in play, and the defense is doing some work.
One ball and 2 strikes.
There's a fan that just made a play on the 3rd base side, second deck. He's well attired and got some nice defensive moves.
There's rally monkeys with him on each sleeve.
I think that's crossed the line for me.
Definitely over the top. Marwin puts one out to center field. Trout waiting for this one. And it's out number 2 for Blanton. Blanton, having pitched well in each of his last 2 starts, nonetheless lost 5-1 last time out to Baltimore, and 3-2 the time before that to Seattle. So there's some tough luck involved in his 0-5. Now Robbie Grossman. Grossman grounded to second, hit that deep drive caught by Trout going back. Strike 1 to Robbie. Floor is warm down there as the night is getting a little cooler. Wind is blowing out to left. Bouncer to first. Trumbo has it. The home run by Carter makes it 3-0 Houston after 5.
To the 6th inning. We want to remind you to tune in to Chevy Hometown Kids every Saturday morning at 9:30 on CSN. Chevy Hometown Kids, where it's not about the score, but the experience.
They are enjoying the evening here. They watch the Astros build up a 3-0 lead, and they watch Bud Norris throw just 38 pitches through the first 5. He's had single digits in 4 of those 5 innings and pitches. 5 innings, 5 hits, no runs, no walks, and an unusual no strikeouts through 5 for Bud. J.B. Shuck leads it off. That's strike 1. But Bud has gotten 2 double play balls behind him. There was a caught stealing when Castro threw out Trumbo.
At that pace, Bud could pitch a complete game tonight and need work after the ball game.
Altuve with a good play to his left gets Shuck 1 out. And the ground ball outs have been coming quickly for Bud.
Like a spring training start where you pitch your allotted number of innings or pitches and then go down to the bullpen and get some extra work in.
Yeah. 9 ground ball outs now for Norris. Shooting for win number 4 of the year, and it's Eric Ibar. Ibar, the single in the first pitch of the game, then was erased on a double play ball. He fly to left his second time up. Last time the Angels were here was 2004. He'll be a regular visitor now with 3 trips per season.
That last slider there by Bud Norris, the one that he's had in his real good starts, most recently against the Tigers, earlier this year against these Angels.
It's 1-1. Angels have matched their worst 32 game start in franchise history, 11-21. They've done that 4 times. Last time was 1976. Bouncer first, backhanded. Pena with a toss to Norris. Another ground ball out for the second out of the inning.
Bud Norris, after taking that toss at the bag to throw the ball, get it started around the infield, he throws a one-hopper, kind of a little rocket to Altuve. And now for the pitch-by-pitch presented by Steel Dealers. This at bat by Eric Ibar starts him with a tough slider, tries to pick the outside edge, and the changeup induces the ground ball. So just mixing the pitches around, and that's what Bud Norris has been all about tonight.
Twice Mike Trout has batted. Twice he's hit the grounder right at the shortstop. First time it was a double play ball. There's strike 1 for Norris. In that Oklahoma City win this afternoon over Tacoma, 7-6 in 10 innings. We mentioned the Red Hawks were down 6-0 with 2 outs in the 9th. They got 6 in the 9th to tie it, including grand slam by Jonathan Villar to center field. High drive left field. That's got some carry for Mike Trout. Trout hits it way up, and that bangs off the wall. Comes back in, and he will check in with a double. That's his 11th 2-base hit.
Yeah, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination did Mike Trout get all of this baseball. But had he been able to read the throwback into the infield, he might have had a triple. This is a very talented player. It doesn't have to hit at his best to come up with extra bases. And this throw comes back in from Carter. It's up and over the cutoff man, and eventually got into third base, but I think it left the opportunity there for Trout.
19 extra base hits, second in the American League. Mike Napoli, who holds the batter now. Albert has an extra base hit in 2 tries, a double to left. That's ball 1 to him. Norris has really attacked Pujols in their confrontations down through the years. Gets that one in on a changeup.
It's well spotted with the change.
Bud's throwing his changeup about 15% of the time this year.
I think against the left-handers, he could afford to throw it more. And we talked earlier about left-handers have done quite well against Bud. That could be the one pitch, along with a fastball in, that could set him up well.
Broken bat roller. Dominguez bobbles, has time to throw out Pujols. Not running well. And it's no runs a hit and a man stranded. After 5.5, the Astros lead the Angels 3-0. Sportsnet is brought to you by Progressive. Visit Progressive.com today. And the Chipotle Chicken Combo is back for a limited time at Jack in the Box. Try one today with fries and a drink for just $4.99 plus tax. Nightfall has come to downtown. Little hoops action out there in the distance. Meanwhile, on the eastern edge of downtown at Minute Maid Park, it's Jimmy Paredes leading it off in the home sixth. Showing bunt, taking ball one from Joe Blanton. Paredes ripped an RBI double to right field in the third after striking out in the first inning.
46 on there right now.
Looks at that pitch wide, and it's a 2-ball, no strike count. Quite a game for Jared Cosart last night for Oklahoma City in a 6-1 win over Tacoma. He did not give up a run in 5 2/3 innings, and he fanned 10. Paredes chases that one, and it's a 2-ball, 1 strike count. Ideally, he would make that pitch in the strike zone where he can really do some damage with it. And he expanded a little bit. Foul back.
Jared Cosart and Michael Fultonevich, a couple of arms that look like they are priming themselves nicely to get to the big leagues. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. It could, but sometime pretty soon.
Both on the fast track. Paredes gets a foul. It's crazy the way things can change during the length of a 6-month season. Guys getting injured, released, traded. Spots open up for young guys to move up quickly. Paredes looks at ball 3, and it's 3-2 to Jimmy. First 3-2 count, first 3-ball count, period.
Will say I love what we see from Jimmy Paredes to this point. Just a couple of ball games. Tough to get much of a read, but good looking player.
Extremely athletic. Tomorrow night's the finale of this series. Lucas Harrell goes for the Astros. Jason Vargas, a lefty, will pitch for the Angels. Paredes takes it at strike 3. Strikeout number 6 for Blanton as we check the Astros minor league clubs, and they are doing well. Those are now 4-0 with a 2.18 ERA at Oklahoma City. Nolan Fontana at Lancaster has hit .353. He was drafted less than a year ago from the University of Florida.
Ronnie, you mentioned that Oklahoma City comeback trailing 6-0 in the 9th inning, 2 outs.
Yeah.
Jonathan VR, who has been playing great baseball, a grand slam to tie that ball game.
Jose Altuve has struck out and flied to right. VR is another of those who could be here.
Those are those legendary stories where somebody says, why, I remember a game when.
Oh, under the glove of Callaspo. And Altuve takes the turn. Shuck gets to it and fires back in. Good play by Shuck as that ball skimmed under the glove of Callaspo off the bat of Altuve. And it helped Jose that Callaspo was in tight, respecting his ability to bunt.
Ball sharply hit. But you'd love your infielders to get in front so that if you don't take it with the leather, you take it with body and still have a shot at the out.
It's ruled a hit. Altuve's hitting streak goes to 4 games.
I'm going to bet Mike Scioscia doesn't agree.
Yeah, you're right. He'd like to see that play made.
At the same time, I'm not disagreeing with the call. It's just gotten to that point with the Angels where I'm sure Scioscia would love to see the guys start stepping up and making the unusual play.
Sure. Castro is line to left and line to right. And I think in the official scorer's mind, I'm guessing for him, the infielder was in. The ball was hit extremely sharply. He did not get his glove on it.
Look, I would feel for Altuve if he didn't get a hit hitting a ball that sharply by an infielder.
Altuve dives back in.
But if I were in the tough to wear uniform right now for Mike Scioscia, I would be probably doing everything possible to see if you can wake up your players.
Yes.
These guys have been paid to be a championship flight club, and they are anything but right now.
Good point about that payroll. Running game could be a factor, as you saw in those numbers. It's a 1 ball, no strike count.
Joe Blanton, at least on that pitch and others throughout the night, very quick to the plate.
Now Castro is a double play candidate. He's bounced into only 1 this year, though, in 107 at-bats, 108 at-bats.
This guy's one of the hardest luck hitters I've watched this year.
Well, certainly has been again tonight, hasn't he?
He's hit a couple of line drives, 1 to left, 1 to right.
He's got to feel good, though, and he was talking about this a few days ago. He kind of retooled his stroke over the winter, and the results are there. He is hitting the ball very hard to left center field, and that's what he was trying to do over the winter. As left-handed hitters, you probably think of Joe Mauer, you know, since we're talking about a catcher here, and Castro, guys who can pound that ball to left center field, can be some of the best hitters in the game.
Joe Mauer has already been an MVP. He left-handed hitting backstop, has been accused of not hitting enough home runs through the years, but he wins batting titles.
Yeah.
And he hits the ball on the ground, shoots it like this.
That's into left center field for a hit. Well, Castro finally gets one in. He could easily be 3 for 3 tonight. He gets Altuve to second with 1 out.
Well, I'll say this. Joe Mauer, as good as he is, doesn't hit the ball harder than what Castro has done here this evening, and basically what Castro has done on the season. We were talking about the Angels and the amount of money they've been paid to be a winning club. 7th highest payroll in Major League Baseball. The Yankees once again at the top. The Dodgers and Angels in LA, teams that have been paid a ton of money to win. And take a look at the standings. Those clubs right at or near the bottom. The Phillies, another club that has struggled, and they've been called out by Cliff Lee to be more professional about their play this year.
Interesting. The Yankees, of course, with a huge payroll, and they're a very banged up team. They have really done a remarkable job of hanging in, considering the amount of money on that payroll that's on the disabled list right now.
I don't know how they've done it, quite frankly, with the variety of top level players they have on the DL and have had on the DL for a lengthy period of time.
Michael Kahn's getting loose in the bullpen with 71 pitches for Joe Blanton to this point. The Astros have a chance to really create some separation in this game, leading 3-0 with J.D. Martinez the batter. Martinez has struck out both times. Blanton has been able to get him to chase pitches down and in. Ground ball to shortstop. There's Ibar flipping, and Kendrick, the middleman, 6-4-3. The double play to end the sixth. No runs, 2 hits, and a man left. After 6, 3-0 Astros.
Nothing. You never know what you might win, but here's how you can try. Just watch Sportsnet Central every night in May at 10 p.m. or after the game to learn our word of the night. Then log on to csnhouston.com for a chance to win cash, prizes, and more. Play Words on CSN every night in May. I heard last night's word was pregame live, guys.
Really?
I didn't win anything, though.
That's
okay.
all one word now, right?
Hey, it can be a series of words.
All right. Well, we're intrigued. I think there are going to be some very nice gifts being handed out to folks who watch for those words. So it's well worth the watching. And listening. Here's Trumbo leading it off in the 7th inning. 3-0 lead for Bud Norris. Bud has 11 ground ball outs. He's thrown 48 pitches through 6. This has to be his all-time low, just guessing, for 6 innings of work. I would say would be the all-time low for a whole lot of guys.
I think Greg Maddux might be jealous right about now.
Yeah. Mark Trumbo is 1 for 2. Just strike one. It would be interesting to hear what Bud has to say after the game, too, if this continues, because he gave up some hard-hit balls in that scoreless first inning. But he got a double play ball, and he got a line out to a leaping shortstop. It's 1 ball, 1 strike. See the tilt on that pitch?
Yep. Yeah, and right over the top of that breaking ball. And I'm assuming that's his curveball. Could be a slider. Hard to tell, but that's, in my book, legitimately a 12-6 curveball.
That's what we noticed in a game in Anaheim that you referred to. He had a couple of different breaking balls, a couple of different speeds.
Now, I didn't look at the speed of the previous pitch. That last one, 83. So that's a slider, and that might be the same pitch. He's getting a great angle on the break, almost straight downward.
It's a 3-ball, 1 strike count to Trumbo, and he's not going to want to walk him.
Of course, as soon as we start talking about Bud's efficiency, he falls behind in the count.
Never fails. Bud's walked 16 this year. He's thrown 43 innings. Now 3-2 to Trumbo.
Well, Bud, when he pitches like we're seeing right now, he's very valuable to this club. But the question that starts to arise as you approach the All-Star break is how valuable does he become to other clubs? How valuable in terms of gathering younger talent?
Oh, blew him away. First strikeout of the night. He saved a little something.
Now, these strikeouts are going to run him right out of the ball game.
He's been conserving for 6 innings.
Now he can go ahead and strike people out, huh?
Yeah, now he can let it go.
Very nicely done. And I hate to talk about that, but it's a reality in this business that players who have value on certain clubs are going to have value to other teams.
Hamilton drives one to left field, headed for the seats in the Landry's Crawford boxes. Opposite field home run for Josh Hamilton, number 3 of the year. And he's hit all 3 against the Astros. 3-1 Houston now as Hamilton drives in his 10th of the year.
Hamilton, Mike Scioscia and company have to be very pleased, but this is not the typical Josh Hamilton home run from years gone by where he just hits him way out of the ballpark. He's just been kind of getting them out. And as you say, all 3 against Houston pitching. Finds the Crawford boxes.
Hitting coach Jim Eppert has to love that opposite field result from Josh, who's been swinging at tons of bad pitches this year. Howie Kendrick looking at ball 1 is 1 for 2.
I guess the Angels will remember the date, May 8th of 2013, when Josh Hamilton finally got to double digits in RBIs.
Ouch. 1 ball, 1 strike. Well, they decided to add his bat to this lineup. And they have a different kind of club now because of the power of Pujols, Trumbo, and Hamilton in the 3, 4, 5 spots. Trout hitting second with a lot of power. This fly ball heads for center field. Heading back Grossman. And Grossman, who gets there early, turns for out number 2. We've seen that from Robbie.
Join us this Friday. That's May 10th for the Astros and Rangers at 7:10. 10,000 fans will receive a pink cosmetic bag set courtesy of the Methodist Cancer Center. Stay after the game for a spectacular fireworks show presented by Marathon Oil. Call 1-877-9-ASTROS or visit astros.com to get your tickets today.
Friday night fireworks. Big and bright Friday. Rangers in town. That should be fun. Callaspo's 1 for 2. There's ball 1 to Alberto. Washington leads Detroit 3-1. They're in the top of the 6th at Washington. And it's Jordan Zimmerman on the mound. He's been phenomenal this year. In for a strike, 1-1. White Sox have been hitting like the hitless wonders this season, but they're actually leading New York 5-2 in the bottom of the 8th at New York. After just about having a perfect game pitched against them last night by Matt Harvey. In tight on the breaking ball, and he went. Ryan O'Nora with a call. O'Nora brings it up for strike 2.
Matt Harvey, people have compared him to Doc Gooden when he showed up.
Yeah.
Great fastball for Harvey, and he's got the other pitches. And what a season he's starting to compile.
He was perfect for 6 2/3. Gave up an infield hit to Alex Rios. That was the only hit he allowed in 9 innings. Struck out 12.
Rios just simply legged it out.
Just barely 2. 2-2.
You could almost see it in the call at first base. Well, I've got to call it safe because he does beat it, but yeah, it's really unfortunate for a pitcher.
Harvey has a 1.28 ERA. Career ERA 2.07 now. He's not considered a rookie because he pitched too many innings last year. Have you ever read much about these game scores that are assigned to some of the best pitch games?
I check him out quite a bit. I think he got a 96 or a 97 on that game.
Well, you're all over it. He got a 97. Top game score. Kerry Wood 105 against the Astros in 98.
They shortchanged him. That was unbelievable.
It really was.
They should have thrown in an extra 100 points just bonus for what he did.
Yeah, that was a 20 strikeout game in Chicago with 1 hit.
Yeah, I actually like that stat a lot. I think there's a lot to it. You can quickly glance at a game score for a starting pitcher and get a good read immediately as to how effective, how overpowering, how it all kind of combined up for a starter.
The line shot, center fielder Grossman coming in. Nice jump by Robbie Grossman. He was off in a flash, and he gloved the Callaspo liner as he slid there in left center field. Good play by Grossman. Angels get one. Inning stretch, Astros 3, Angels 1, each club with a home run, and Bud Norris has really pitched a couple of gems against this Angel club this year.
Yeah, you take it back early on in April. He was as good as we've seen him all year. 7 innings of shutout ball, 3-hit night that night for Bud. And tonight what he's done in holding it down to 1 run now on the home run by Josh Hamilton is minimize the pitches. He has been terrific in that regard. Just 1 strikeout, and I wonder if Bud's thinking to himself, boy, I wonder if this might not be the way to go.
Bottom half of the 7th inning now, and it's Carlos Pena against Joe Blanton. Taking ball 1. Pena is 0 for 2. He has a ground out and a strikeout. It's certainly a different version of Bud Norris tonight. That's been the most intriguing part of this game. Now, the second baseman, Kendrick, once again in right field for Pena. Taps it foul. It's 1-1. Yeah, that Harvey game last night, among the best in recent years. Don Wilson pitched a game that was rated a 96 in his no-hitter in 1967, the first of 2 no-hitters he pitched for the Astros. He struck out 18 Braves in that one. And Kevin Millwood had a 96 score for a 13 strikeout game, a 1-hitter he pitched in 98. But Harvey, definitely one of the top pitchers in the game. It'll be fun to see what he does with the Mets over a full season this year.
Well, his stuff is really stand-up kind of stuff.
Pulled out to the second sacker, Kendrick in right field. He gets him for the second time tonight. As we promised earlier in the game, it's Miller time, brought to you by Miller Lite. You see a swing of Carter. That ball didn't get out to the target. It drifted back over the plate, and this is number 8.
No doubt shot. Chris Carter can make it look so easy and put himself on a pace despite all the problems this year of maybe going 35, 40 home runs on the year.
Batting 7th tonight. He's 1 for 2. There's ball 1 to him.
You know, back on that game score subject, if you don't follow it and you're not really sure how a normal game score might show up, you go back to that great outing by Bud Norris, 7 shutout innings, 3 hit ball, just a couple of walks back on April 12th against the Angels. That was a 74. That's a very good score. So that gives you an idea what that 97 is all about.
Boy, I bet it does. That's a 74.
That was a 74. Now, Bud Norris on this season, most of his game scores are in the 40s. He had won his opening start of the season, 5 2/3, very good innings against the Texas Rangers. 53 was the game score. So it's not like you're looking at a bunch of 80s and 70s and then you see this 90 come along. So that tells you how far out in front of the other starts this was by Harvey.
Sure does. 1-2 to Carter. Carter hits one to third. Callaspo zips a throw across to Trumbo. 2 outs.
And it's not subjective. It's all predetermined where you pick up and lose points. You start at 100, I believe, is what it is, and you can actually gain on it and go over 100 if you have a remarkable game with shutout, with strikeouts and not giving up any base runners. But yeah, you'll start losing points right away.
You pick up points for strikeouts. You lose points for walks, right?
Yes, and hits. And how they impact in terms of bases and runs.
Strike to Matt Dominguez. He whistled the line drive double to right field in the third and scored on a double by Gonzalez. Then he grounded out. Blanton's curveball is outside. It's a 1-ball, 1-strike count.
And again, to use Bud Norris as kind of the guinea pig on game score, his average game score on this season is listed at 27. That seems awfully low.
Smashers, a jumping throw by Ibar, looping throw not in time, and Dominguez gets his second hit of the night. Ibar made a play on him in the 5th inning. This time he puts one in the hole and reaches with a 2-out single.
Matt Dominguez moves around on the base as well, and here you can see it's not like he was burning down the line, but heck of a play by Ibar. That throw just needs a couple of cutoff men.
That's hit number 6 for the Astros. Make it 7. And Marwin Gonzalez will follow. He snapped an 0 for 19 and brought the first run of the game home with a double to left center in the 3rd inning. He's 1 for 2. Texas is shutting out Milwaukee 3-0 in the bottom of the 6th inning with Derek Holland on the mound. Fouled away. Well, the Rangers didn't get nearly as much attention over the winter as the Angels did. The Angels were picked by many to win the American League this year. And now look where they are. Rangers are in first place. And they have called up young pitchers who have helped them with the injuries they've had to their pitching staff.
I think most baseball experts thought the Angels had picked up a likely MVP candidate in Josh Hamilton. He's been anything but.
Here's Iannetta, the catcher, takes a look over toward the bench. 0-1 to Marwin.
I'd like to see Johnny Bench or Carlton Fisk having to look to the bench all the time for every given sign.
Yeah. 1-1.
It's what the game has become. Not sure I believe it's for the better.
Gonzalez with a line drive hit to left field. This time Dominguez around second will hold there. Shuck comes up with it cleanly. And Marwin is 2 for 3. The number 8 hitter Dominguez also 2 for 3. Bottom of the order production tonight for Bo Porter. And it's really, as you see Mike Scioscia coming out, this is what the Astros would love to have, that consistent attack. Several players making contact, chiming in. That'll be it for Blanton. And he came into this game 0-5. Cannot be a winning pitcher tonight. He's on the hook for loss number 6 as of right now. 3-1 Houston. More in a moment. Here in the bottom of the 7th with runners at first and second and 2 outs. Tomorrow night, the Astros and Angels will tangle in the series finale here at Minute Maid Park. Astros pregame live kicks things off at 6:30 p.m. only on Comcast Sportsnet. Let's take a look at the pitchers for tomorrow night's game, and they're brought to you by Chevron. Care for your car. It's lefty Jason Vargas at 1-3 with a 3.72 ERA, striking out 20, walking 14. It's Lucas Harrell for Houston, 3-3 with a 5.03 with 27 strikeouts and 20 walks. 6:30 tomorrow night. Hope you'll be here. Michael Kahn has come out of the bullpen. He's 26 years old with those numbers for the season.
I'd say that whip indicates that he's been quite effective in keeping runners off the bases. It's 4 hits allowed, 1 walk, and 7 1/3. 9 strikeouts. Also probably has an overpowering pitch in the assortment.
Robbie Grossman might see it. It's up and it's ball 1 at 95.
Probably it right there.
Yep, pretty good chance. I wonder if Michael Kahn was throwing 95 when he was drafted in the 13th round in 08.
You would think not.
Probably not. You know how he got here? Tommy John surgery. No, it's not that simple, but quite often pitchers do pick up miles per hour after that surgery.
Isn't that something?
It is.
We have the technology. We can make you better.
Kahn is from Camden, South Carolina. Went to the College of Charleston. That's a strike. And he missed all of last season recovering from Tommy John surgery in April. Dominguez the runner at second. Gonzalez on at first, and Robbie Grossman has a 1-2 count. Guys like Grossman, though, frequently hit with 2 strikes in the count.
It's kind of his game plan, trying to get on base via the walk, whatever way he can get on base.
It's 2-2.
Yeah, this heater's alive.
Yeah, it's alive and it's kicking hard tonight. The Astros would like to be able to cash in on this 7th inning opportunity, leading by 2. And he gets a strikeout to end the Astros 7th. No runs, 2 hits, 2 men left after 7, 3-1 Houston.
Come out to Minute Maid Park May 25th for our annual Bayou Bash presented by Louisiana Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, with a special thanks to Budweiser. First pitch against the A's is at 6:10, but come out early for the live music, crawfish, and more. Call 1-877-9-ASTROS to get your tickets now, guys.
Thank you, Julia. We have a different outfield alignment. Robbie Grossman has moved from center field to left field. Brandon Barnes has checked into center field. Chris Carter leaving the game after going 1 for 3 with a homer. Scott Cousins comes up to pinch hit for the Angels in the 8th inning against Bud Norris. First Astros starter to reach the 8th inning this year. He's hitting for Chris Iannetta. Cousins was just brought up from AAA Salt Lake prior to the game Tuesday. And there's strike one to Scott Cousins.
No secret to the formula for Bud Norris tonight. Yes, you have to have very good stuff, and he's had that, but just throwing strikes. And really the same thing that Joe Blanton did for the Angels, throwing strikes, forcing the hitters to swing the sticks, putting the ball in play, and good defense behind.
Changeup works for him, and it's 0-2 to Scott Cousins. His last big league hit was last September 27th with Miami against the Mets at the end of last year. He chases one and is down on strikes. That's number 2 for Norris. J.B. Shuck will follow.
Now these strikeouts are going to add pitches, but Bud's in such a good position that you would think that the complete game is a genuine possibility tonight.
68 pitches tonight through 46 2/3 of an inning at Oakland. Shuck takes a look at it at strike one. He is 0 for 2.
That 122 pitch outing that you saw for Bud Norris, I thought it was a great shot to give to Bud against the Oakland A's, trying to get through the 6th inning. He eventually couldn't get it done, but he pitched very well in that ball game.
He has not walked a man tonight. He walked one here against Oakland in that 122 pitch game you talked about in 5 2/3. Fly ball and head for the corner. Robbie Grossman, and it's back against that wall and up into the seats. 12,906 the paid attendance. Well, Grossman gets good jumps.
I was just thinking, watching him, I've had the long held feeling that it's maybe easier and safer to play center field than the corner positions in the outfield. There aren't many walls like that will battle a guy from gap to gap in center field.
No. Shuck takes a tight slider.
And yet you always hear baseball people talk about, well, move him from center to one of the corner outfield spots where it'll be easier and he won't face the danger that you face playing center field. I don't get that one.
Shading close to the line. The pitch is in tight, though. 2-2. Yeah, some guys can't play the corner outfield spots. Some guys will tell you that center field is the easiest position to play in the outfield.
You see the ball off the bat a whole lot better, and you get far less of the hooking and slicing.
Robbie has played the other outfield spots, and that's important for a major league organization to make sure that a player such as Robbie Grossman has had experience at all 3 of those if they plan to use him in those other areas, and they do. Justin Maxwell, by the way, recovering ahead of schedule from that broken bone in his left hand. So when he comes back to center field, it's important to know that Robbie can play the other spots. 3 balls, 2 strikes here for Bud. J-Max. He was texting Jay Happ earlier today, as many Jay's former Astros teammates were. Fortunately, he's out of the woods. There's a 1-out walk to Shuck. First walk for Norris tonight.
The Dynamo put their home unbeaten streak on the line this Sunday against Sporting KC. Coverage begins Sunday night at 6:30 on Comcast Sportsnet Plus.
Earlier that day, Jordan Lyles and Nick Tepesch will be the starters here as the Rangers and Astros series will conclude. Friday night, it's Dallas Keuchel and Alexi Ogando. Saturday, Eric Bedard and Yu Darvish. Darvish had the perfect game through 8 2/3 here earlier this season. Those are the matchups for the weekend. Eric Ibar bounces one, and it's backhanded. Pena, Gonzalez, Pena, 3-6-3 double play. That's 3 of those for the Astros tonight. What a night for Bud Norris. The Astros lead it 3-1.
Out front, 3-1. Time for our AT&T tweet of the game. It comes from Justin Maxwell. He's a good tweeter. Great game last night. Jordan Lyles was solid. Jose Altuve and Carter with bombs. Back at it tomorrow. Well, it is tomorrow, and coming into this game, Chris Carter had 5 home runs on the road, only 1 at Minute Maid Park. Well, with back-to-back home runs here the past couple of days, he's evened it up a bit. And we actually talked about that lopsided number not too long ago. Carter said, I've got to prove to these home fans that I can hit home runs. Carter, I think you did, guys.
That was a thunderous swing he made in the 5th inning on that long home run.
I think a lot of that is proving to yourself that you not only can hit home runs, but that you can hit.
Come on, Jimmy, get on.
Strike to Jimmy Paredes, who's 1 for 3 in RBI double in the 3rd. The Astros strung together 3 doubles in a span of 4 batters in the 3rd against Joe Blanton, who in 6 2/3 innings allowed 8 hits, 3 runs, did not walk anybody, fanned 6 for 86 pitches. That's foul back into the seats. And it's 0-2. For the Angels in the 9th, Trout, Pujols, and Trumbo are due up. Michael Kahn in relief of Joe Blanton. There have only been 3 pitchers appearing in this game tonight.
Jimmy, straighten it out.
That's been highly unusual for an Astros game this year. In tight. 1-2. Twins are blasting the Red Sox 14-6 in the bottom of the 7th inning. Ryan Domet hit his 2nd home run. Pedro Florimon number 1. Victorino and Gomes have gone deep for the Sox. Fouled away. In the top of the 8th, the Nationals lead the Tigers 3-1. Bryce Harper hit his 10th. Angel bullpen has a 4.42 ERA. We just got to look at a little boy who was lifted up to us. Cute little kid down there.
Amazing they would airlift a little boy in like that.
It's fun at the old ballpark tonight. Paredes rips a line drive. He bangs that one to right field, and then one hops the wall. He heads for second again. Here's Hamilton's throw. Another double for Jimmy Paredes.
Yes, he has pop in the bat. I don't know how that translates for a while anyway in terms of home runs. But you take these doubles all season long.
You want to talk about pop? He just woke up somebody in Midtown.
If he gets under this ball just a fraction, he has provided a souvenir out there and not close to the wall. Good quick bat. Jimmy Paredes is doing everything right now as he joins the ball club just a couple of games in.
That's 9 hits for the Astros. He's aboard for Altuve, who bunting, and it's foul. And Conger is in the game. Tried to tag him and throw to third. It was a foul ball. Conger had the roughest of nights ever for an Angel catcher with 3 errors last night. Took over after Chris Iannetta left for the pinch hitter, Scott Cousins.
Hurts when you try to make a throw and hit the hitter's bat with your hand and mostly the ball. Wind up getting an error on the play, but that's what happened.
Jay Happ's feeling very fortunate.
Well, that's good.
Being carted off the field last night. Yeah, what a scare. There's a shot to right field. Paredes will go back to tag. Here's the catch by Hamilton. Hamilton makes the long throw in toward third base, but it's cut off. On out number 1, Altuve advances the runner. He's really good at steering that ball to the right of second base.
Yes, he is. Looks like an out to a lot of people, to baseball people. That is just pure good work. And not a little slow ground ball the other way. When he tries to go to right field, he stings it.
Now that makes the runner at third and 1 out for Jason Castro. It brings the infield in. Textbook.
Now, there's just a lot to like about Jose Altuve. He's not, again, I'll say it, not just a good little player. He is a really good player.
And talking about this very thing tonight with John Maley before batting practice, and he pointed out that this is the ideal. You know, you get a hitter up there, runner at third, and one out. You don't have to have a hit to drive in this run. And if the Astros can do more of this, advancing runners, getting more doubles, it can really help their offense. Castro's 1 for 3. He stung the ball all 3 times. Ball 1.
Leadoff doubles are precious. Now, a lot of times they get wasted, and we've seen a lot of that with not only the Astros but clubs that have been playing of late. But you get that leadoff double and play baseball at that point, you should score a run.
A lot of holes in that infield and over that infield for Castro. And as a hitter, Ash, you can talk to this. You know, if you go up there needing a hit, it's a different mentality than in this situation.
One of the biggest things that I got the pleasure of playing under Frank Robinson when I was in Cleveland early in my career. And one of the things that he said that really caught my attention was, in this scenario, don't try to steer something. Don't try to hit a fly ball. Just try to hit the ball as hard as you can. And for me, that game of hitting the ball as hard as I could became a real key in driving in runs.
John Maley emphasized that tonight. Eric Young has been talking about that on the Astros pregame live and postgame live shows. I'm sure Art Howe talks about it too. Getting a pitch from the middle on out that you can drive somewhere, the opposite field. And John Maley said too often this year, pitchers will bring a breaking ball in, and we've swung at that pitch, and that's not a pitch you can drive.
Well, unless you happen to be a hitter who likes a breaking ball in, and you tend to crank that pitch. I think every hitter can be different, and every hitter can be different from day to day, from at bat to at bat. Jason Castro is ideal for this scenario. He says as the ball gets thrown right up by the bat, but you know, he can hit that ball in the air the other way towards center field. We've seen him drive it in the air to right field tonight.
Right.
Just hit the ball hard, and Jason's very good at that.
Nothing wrong with swinging at that type of pitch. And now 2 strikes. He's really needing contact. J.D. Martinez on deck. And it's 3-2.
This fastball is apparently quite difficult to get to. It's right in that 94-95 range, but some guys have that live 4-seamer that just rides over the bat.
John struck out 20 in 21 innings with the Angels in 2010. Just had 14 games with him in 2011 and no games last year with the Tommy John surgery. Castro takes a walk. That's an excellent job.
The Astros are in town through the week and into the weekend against the Angels and the Texas Rangers. Don't miss any of the American League West action. Call 1-877-9-ASTROS or visit Astros.com to get your tickets right now.
Now we'll get a pinch hitter. Trevor Crowe will be coming up for his first at bat as an Astro. He's pinch hitting for J.D. Martinez. Crowe was among those who was just promoted from Oklahoma City yesterday. Formerly with the Cleveland Indians, former first-round draft choice, a switch hitter. Now Mike Scioscia is going to go to his bullpen. And that's what Cole Porter has to like about Trevor Crowe. He can bat either way. But it's not going to be against Michael Kahn. Kahn leaves with runners at first and third and 1 out here in the 8th inning. A critical point for Scioscia. With the Astros leading it 3-1. We'll be back to see this confrontation right after this. A pitching change. They have gone to Dane De La Rosa, the 6'7" right-hander, comes in with runners at first and third to face Trevor Crow.
That's an intriguing decision by Mike Scioscia. He has a strikeout pitcher on the mound in Kahn, and now decides to go to De La Rosa with 1 out, a double play possibility. De La Rosa, a guy who maybe is more inclined to get the ground ball, but with Trevor Crow coming to the plate, he leaves Crow on that same left side of the plate. So it's not about changing him around, trying to figure to get him on a weak side of the plate. This may be just simply trying to get the ground ball for the double play.
Crow was very impressive this spring,
That he was. Swings it quite well. Not a big guy, and yet he showed some pop with the bat. Good instincts on the bases. Trevor Crow can play this game, and I think as a utility type outfielder, he might fit in very well.
Crow was picked up by the Astros in November 2012, 14th overall pick by the Indians, the first round choice in 05. Back-10 co-player of the year in 05. Trevor Crow from Portland, Oregon, played at the University of Arizona.
Got a chance to leave a nice impression immediately here.
Bunting, and here is Paredes, and the throw to the plate is Conger makes the tag. He missed the plate. Paredes saying, no, I touched the plate. And the home plate umpire, Bill Welke, said he missed it and made no call until Conger went after him and tagged him out.
Well, Bill Porter came out as a firm believer that he got the plate. We'll get a chance to see exactly what went on. Trevor Crow gets asked to lay down the bunt, and he does exactly what you're supposed to do on a squeeze scenario. That safety squeeze, and with a safety squeeze, the runner doesn't get a good jump from third base, and it just sets up the opportunity for this very play. Let's see right here. Does he get a hand on the plate? Yes, he does. Absolutely. So you can't justify no tag was made and he didn't touch the plate. Just a missed call. That's all that is. The Astros should pick up a run right here.
Wrong call by Bill Welke. Was looking right at it. Paredes got the left hand on home plate, but he's out number 2 from 1-2. Now runners at first and second for Carlos Pena. And he is 0 for 3. Big call in this game with the Astros up by 2. Trying to get an insurance run home with a bunt. Astro at second, Crow at first now with 2 outs. And that's ball 1. Now that was the safety squeeze, so the runner Paredes was waiting for that ball to be bunted before he took off.
So is baseball better served if they have somebody up in the booth that watches a replay and gets this call right, or just leave it to the umpires and a missed call?
Fair question.
I would lean toward the former. I would do a whole lot more than lean. I'd sprint in that direction.
1 ball, 1 strike.
Of course, that doesn't mean very fast in my case, but I'd find the fastest mode of propulsion to that direction.
Michael Kahn, a big fan of that out call. It was his potential run scoring when Paredes was ruled out at home plate. Brandon Barnes on deck. 2-1. We see it again.
Well, Trevor Crow does exactly what he's asked to do, lay down the bunt. Now the tag clearly misses. The hand clearly gets the plate, and that's a run.
That was a phenomenal slide by Paredes.
And if you had a version of replay instantly done up in the booth, there's no need for argument. It's a run, and you move on with the ball game.
Pena takes a look at ball 3. It's 3-1. The shift a little bit different now with runners at first and second. Kendrick still out in shallow right center field, but Ibar is on the third base side of second. We'll see.
And I continue to be so intrigued by why the umpires have the power and authority to not have this replay even shown in the ballpark so that fans could see what really took place. But that's the way it is.
on.
Foul back. Good cut by Pena at the 3-1 pitch.
Great swing by Carlos. Yeah, in other sports, you see it played over and over so that the fans can see exactly what goes on. Right here, fans at home know that a run should have scored, but everybody in the ballpark has only their personal belief. We'll see a good major league swing. Yeah, he's getting everything into it, just not squaring it up.
He can really help the cause after that missed call at the plate if he comes through with a hit here. The runners will be moving on 3-2 with 2 outs. And he grounds one, and down on a knee, Kendrick gets up and throws to first. A little shaky, but he got the 3rd out. No runs, 1 hit, 2-man left, and a missed call. It could have been run number 4 for the Astros. Instead, it's an out, and it's 3-1 Houston heading to the 9th. Is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. On this beautiful night, Bud Norris has really pitched a masterpiece through 8, and he's back out for the 9th inning. He has not gone the distance in a major league game in his career. He's had over 100 starts. He takes this game to the 9th with the 2-3-4 hitters due up: Trout, Pujols, and Trumbo.
77 pitches for Bud, 54 of which have been strikes. Many of those put into play. This is a Bud Norris version that you would love to see time and time again, and he could make it so easy on himself pitching a game like this.
This is his 105th major league start. Trout ripped a double in the 6th inning, left center. He's 1 for 3, showing bunt. There's a strike. And a bunt would bring a potential tying run to the plate if Trout could reach on it.
You can take all you want as a hitter, but if a pitcher continues to pump strikes and put you down in the count, at some point you realize you've got to go ahead and swing the bat.
Bounces the breaking ball. It's a 1-1 count. Norris shooting for win number 4 of the season. It would be his 3rd at home. Angels are 8th in runs scored in the American League. And tight, and it's 2-1 to Trout.
Still good velocity, 93 on the heater. But looking at those fingers again now, and we haven't seen that throughout the night.
He's at 80 pitches, as you see. Flashed on a line to left field. Good pickup in left, and the throw is high and goes all the way to the first baseman, Carlos Pena. That's Robbie Grossman really uncorked one, but it didn't cost him.
Create memories, save money, and have fun with the Astros and their baseball. No matter what your special event might be, we will create an experience your group is sure to remember. Call 1-877-9-ASTROS or visit Astros.com to find out more.
Now Albert Pujols, who represents the potential tying run, is 1 for 3, a double to left field. Pujols in his career at Minute Maid Park has a .308 batting average with 24 homers, 50 runs batted in 360 at-bats coming into this game tonight.
A pitch hit by Mike Trout, a slider that was right through the heart of the plate, and Mike Trout hit it the way you're supposed to when you see that hanger.
Strike to Pujols.
Bit of a hanger right there.
There's bullpen action for the Astros. You see Jose Veras and Wesley Wright. Josh Hamilton could come up in the inning. It's a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Veras got the save last night as the Astros won it 7-6. Pujols has hit 42 career home runs against the Astros. On by a diving Carlos Pena into right field. Trout goes first to third on the opposite field single by Pujols, and the Angels are set up first and third, nobody out. Pujols 2 for 4 tonight.
It's an amazing game of inches at times, and Carlos Pena comes so close to gloving this ball, and if he does, he might have a double play.
And Luis Jimenez comes out to pinch run for Albert Pujols at first base, representing the potential tying run.
Right off the end of the bat. And if he gloves that, got an easy double play as Mike Trout had tried to extend his lead. Looked like that ball went right under the glove of Carlos Pena.
Might have. Cole Porter out to take the baseball from Bud Norris. He leaves with a 3-1 lead. Runners at first and third, nobody out.
Terrific effort.
Yeah, it really was. Jose Veras on his way. Back in a moment. Anybody who happens to be watching last night, a 7-6 win for the Astros. Now another interesting game going to the ninth inning, 3-1. Bud Norris, 8 innings plus, 9 hits, 1 run allowed. Walking 1, fanning 2, and Jose Veras comes in.
Yeah, very much agreed. And as the bullpen now comes in to try to get it done, Hector Hombres had himself a big strikeout there last night. Curveball at the knees to pick up a strikeout, and Blackley had some problems, but eventually got a strikeout as well. Veras came in a 1-2-3 ninth inning, and that's the way you shut him down, and everybody in Astros white would love to see that once again tonight.
Veras 0-2, his ERA 4.85. He got his third save in 5 opportunities last night. All three of those saves coming in one run. Houston wins. Walking four, fanning 15 in 13 innings for the veteran 32-year-old 6'5" right-hander. Trumbo, who's hit 6 homers in his last 8 games, comes to the plate. He's 1 for 3.
Can't say enough about what Bud Norris did tonight.
First Astro starter to go 8 innings this year. Just a very unusual game for Bud, a different kind of a game, but extremely effective. Ground ball outs with only 1 walk and just 2 strikeouts. 3 double plays behind him. There's Trumbo's night. Bears pitching for the 4th time on this homestand. Breaking pitch, and Trumbo leaned back on that one. Strike out.
For some reason, that buckled Trumbo, he must have been guessing all the way for a fastball, but it was also a breaking ball left up that you can occasionally see crushed.
Pinch runner at first, Luis Jimenez for Pujols. Veras had 6 straight scoreless outings, then he got a blown save and a loss against Detroit 5 days ago. Bridging the runner at third, Trout. On its way down to foul territory. No balls, 2 strikes.
Some people test reactions with a rubber hammer to the knee, and others do it with line shots right at you. Pick that rubber hammer anytime.
That ball very well hit. Veras gave up a 2-run homer to Alex Avila of Detroit in that lone save and loss. Trumbo swings and misses and strikes out.
Well, Veras comes in and gets it done pitch by pitch, presented by Steel Dealers, and we'll see exactly what Veras does here with Mark Trumbo. I don't know that any one of these pitches was exactly what he wanted, but that leadoff breaking ball got him ahead 0-1. Then the line shot foul and another kind of slow roller that picks up the strikeout as Trumbo was out in front. So whatever Veras is doing was exactly what he needed.
Josh Hamilton's the batter. He homered last time up. Looks at that one for ball 1. Hamilton's 1 for 3 tonight. Veras has an ERA of 2.16 in his last 8 appearances. Hamilton fouls it. It's a 1-ball, 1-strike count.
Veras comes with a changeup on the 1-0. That's an effective selection. Generally a hitter, a guy especially like Hamilton, looking for a fastball he can drive out.
Veras can throw 95, but he's a master of the off-speed stuff. Matt Moore went to 6-0 as the Rays clobbered the Blue Jays 10-4 tonight, beating Ricky Romero. In the air, and again the fastball fouled away. 1-2.
That was a good zone for a hitter, and yet Veras is finding a way to have everything work his way.
Veras signed with Tampa Bay when he began his pro career back in '98. He's been a Yankee and an Indian. He's been a Marlin and a Pirate. And last year he was a Brewer. Hamilton skips rope on that one in the dirt. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Good play by Castro. chance to win a series for the Astros. They won a couple of series from the Seattle Mariners. They are 1-4 on this homestand, looking for a turnaround with the Texas Rangers coming in over the weekend. Angels have just entered a stretch playing 21 of 28 against clubs under 500. It did hit him, and the bases are loaded now as Hamilton's hit by the pitch, bringing up Kendrick. Veras takes a walk. Norris chews on his thumb.
They just yanked that slider this time, and after getting ahead, you let the hitter get away. Well, when you're that pitcher who has put in all night long trying to pick up the W, and you see things now turn this way, bases loaded, ninth inning, and it's because things didn't go your way as you start the inning, awfully tough to deal with.
Kendrick is 2 for 4 lifetime against Veras. Decent batting average with the bases loaded. He's 1 for 3 tonight. Ground ball to short. Gonzalez, Altuve, and there it is to first and Pena. And the Astros get their 4th double play of the night to end it. Pressure pitching there after hitting Hamilton. Veras gets the ground ball sharply hit by Kendrick. Turns it into a 6-4-3 double play to pick up the save. Norris getting the win. And Joe Quentin the loss. And the Astros with a very well played ball game tonight are able to get it done in a low scoring affair, 3-1, as the 4th double play ball comes off the bat of Kendrick.
4th double play, as you say, Brownie, and this ball again, as you say, hit sharply, but boy, you just can't see it any nicer than this, and Bud Norris could not be happier. Can't blame him at all. Great to see for the club, 2 straight wins.
Jose Veras makes the big pitch to end it. And the Astros have won the first 2 of their series from the Angels. Final score, Houston 3, the Angels 1.